Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching my speculative class guide series for Larian Studios' upcoming Baldur's Gate 3. As noted, because Baldur's Gate 3 is not out yet and we don't know everything, this video is speculative. This is based off the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition ruleset, which Larian has said they're going to base their own ruleset off as closely as practical, so I feel pretty confident using it as a baseline for these videos. If you're unaware of any of the basic concepts around D&D or Baldur's Gate more generally, I have a tutorial kind of video about the basics of D&D that you can find right here, or in the description. But without further ado, today we're going to take a look at the rogue is a rather ubiquitous archetype of a class, whether it be a thief, an assassin, or a charlatan using magic to hoax their marks. A rogue uses trickery, deception, perception, or stealth to get their way. As always, we'll go over the class features in order of acquisition, starting with the hit dice. As a rogue, you'll have a hit dice of a 1d8. This means that at first level, you have 8 plus your constitution modifier as hit points, and every level above that, you get either roll a d8, or add the average of 5 plus your constitution modifier, and that's the additional HP you get for every level after first. As for proficiencies, you get light armor proficiency, as well as all simple weapons. You also get a selection of more complex weapons. Specifically, you can use hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords. As far as tool proficiencies, you're proficient in thieves' tools, which makes a lot of sense, and your saving throws are dexterity and intelligence. As for skills, you get to choose 4 rather than 2 that most classes get. You get to choose 4 from acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, or stealth. Quite a few to choose from there, but you get to choose 4 rather than 2, which is quite nice. When you choose the rogue class at level 1, you gain expertise. This means that you can pick 2 of your skill proficiencies, and for those skills, your proficiency bonus is doubled. You can choose instead to take expertise in your thieves' tools and just one other skill, which means that whenever you try and do lockpicking or disarming traps or whatever with your thieves' tools, you're going to do that with more proficiency. I mean, your rogue is probably going to be doing that relatively often. I think probably the most common that people pick is thieves' tools and stealth, because having expertise in them is very, very good. Also at level 1, you gain the most iconic rogue ability, which is Sneak Attack. Once per turn, you can deal additional damage to a creature if you have advantage on the attack, or if you have an ally within 5 feet of the enemy you're attacking. To gain this, you have to be wielding either a ranged weapon or a finesse weapon, and the amount of additional damage is shown on the table that I have up right now. Additionally at level 1, you gain the ability to communicate with Thieves' Cant. It isn't exactly a language per se, it's more a mix of kind of like accents, jargon, coded symbols, and dialects. It's known by many more criminally oriented organizations, such as thieves or assassins guilds, and as such, it can be used to get you access to special prices on certain items, as well as maybe getting into certain areas that others simply can't get into. You can just, because you know how to communicate with these people, it opens doors for you, let's say. At level 2, you gain the Cunning Action feature. This allows you to use certain actions as a bonus action that normally would take a full action. Specifically, the dash, disengage, or hide action. In Baldur's Gate 3, some or even all of these actions perhaps are going to be changed to be bonus actions off the bat anyway. As such, this ability is likely going to be changed or just replaced for Baldur's Gate 3. They have said that they're aware that some of their changes to action and bonus action economy have made the rogue a bit less niche in that area, so they're going to try and tweak it to make it just as good. Moving on to level 3, you get to choose your subclass. As always, I'll go over these a bit later after all the base class features have been explained. At level 4 and at level 8, as with all classes, you gain an ability score improvement. However, the rogue also gets one of these at level 10, so that's quite nice. So you can choose a feat and or ability score improvement at 4, 8, and 10. Level 5, the rogue is naturally dexterous and attentive. As a reaction, the rogue can use their uncanny dodge, allowing them to halve the damage of an attack so long as they can see the attacker. It's once per round effectively because it does take your reaction. The idea being you kind of just dodge and make it a glancing blow rather than a direct hit. Moving on to level 7, the rogue has become even more adept at avoiding damage. Whenever you must make a dexterity saving throw to avoid a damaging area of effect, instead of taking half the damage on a successful save, you take no damage, and you only take half the damage even if you fail the save. So effectively, this is evasion. We've gone over this before with the monk. All area of effector damage has at least halved for you, and you have the chance of taking literally no damage from area of effects. And with that, we can move on to talk about the subclasses, or roguish archetypes. First up, we have the Thief. Before we start here, I want to go over the first sentence in the player's handbook. You hone your skills in larcenous arts. This is the only time I've ever read the word larcenous. I mean, clearly it's just the adjective form of larceny, but it's always struck me as a really rather odd choice of vernacular. particularly because that first sentence could be removed and the entire paragraph still makes perfect sense. But anyway, that's kind of a digression. Let's go on to the actual abilities. Okay, so at level 3, when you first take the subclass, you gain Fast Hands. This actually just upgrades your cunning action to allow you to use your thieves tools and other objects as a bonus action on your turn. So ordinarily, cunning action allows you to dash, disengage, or hide, but if you take thief, you can also use your thieves tools or use an object. So you can unlock a door on a bonus action rather than an action, things like that. Additionally, at level 3, you're an expert at scaling buildings, as is the nature of your work. Mechanically, you have no movement penalty while you're climbing, and with a running jump, you gain the extra distance of your dexterity modifier in feet. So, if ordinarily you can run 30 feet in a round, this means that you can scale a 30-foot wall in just one round. You can just go straight up it like you were running, effectively. Cool, but it's a very passive effect, and I'm wondering how it's going to be implemented. Baldur's Gate 3 does seem to have a lot of verticality to it, so it could come in quite useful, I suppose. It still needs to be scalable, if you understand my meaning. You can't just climb anything. It still needs to be a scalable wall, and it's going to be interesting to see how many of them they actually allow you to actually climb. It's going to be weird. They may actually just straight up change this ability, we'll see. And finally, at level 9, you gain Supreme Stealth. If you're moving at a slow pace, which means you only move up to half your movement in a round, so it's actually if you're moving half pace, you gain advantage on all stealth checks. I'm not entirely sure how they plan to implement this in BG3 either. I could see it working in turn-based mode relatively easily, but even then, it seems to me that the application would need to be done quite carefully as to not make it really ambiguous to the player. It's interesting, there's quite a few things that the rogue has that I'm wary about how they're going to implement, but we'll see. Next up we have the Assassin. The Assassin is somewhat self-explanatory, although the form that it takes may differ somewhat, whether it be the obvious hitman or bounty hunter, but it can even include people such as spies. Either killing outright or crippling your foe before a battle even begins is what really separates assassins. They specialize in dealing burst damage from the shadows. Starting at level 3 when you choose the archetype, you gain proficiency with both the Disguise Kit and Poisoner's Kit. Also at level 3, you gain the Assassinate ability. Firstly, if you attack an enemy that has yet to attack in the turn in this combat encounter, you gain advantage. It's worth noting that because of advantage, you also trigger sneak attack on this attack always, and if you hit a creature that is surprised, essentially, if they don't know you're there or otherwise don't expect you to attack, then your hit is a guaranteed critical hit, which is fantastic. It's worth noting here that critical hit doubles all of the dice rolled, and this includes additional damage rolled with a sneak attack. So, if you open a combat encounter with an arrow or a dagger from the shadows, it more often than not can straight up kill an enemy before combat even starts. It's very, very good having Assassinate. As an assassin, you often need to infiltrate the lives of your victims. So, starting from level 9, you can create an impeccable false identity for yourself that can get you access to certain places and people. It takes 7 days and 25 gold pieces to create, and it includes disguises, certification, and letters of introduction, things like that. This again is a feature that I'm not sure exactly how it could be used in a video game context, particularly Baldur's Gate 3. I'm hoping there are scenarios that are written around the more social-oriented abilities and features. I have confidence in Larian, but if not, hopefully they'll alter some of the abilities so that they're a bit more useful. But finally, we can move on to the Arcane Trickster archetype. They focus on illusion and enchantment spells. The Arcane Trickster uses the magic to augment their abilities in stealth and misdirection. Starting at level 3, when you choose this subclass, you gain access to spellcasting. The number of spells you know and how many spell slots you have are shown on the table right now. At level 3, you learn 3 cantrips, Mage Hand has to be one of them, and 2 other cantrips of your choice from the wizard spell list. You get to choose another wizard cantrip at level 10. As for your known or leveled spells, you learn 3 when you choose this subclass, 2 of which must be from either the Illusion or the Enchantment School of Magic, and each subsequent spell that you learn must be from these schools and on the wizard spell list. The exception to this is the spell that you learn at level 8, which can be from any school of magic. It's worth noting that intelligence is your spellcasting ability, so you'll want a relatively high intelligence if you plan going down this subroute. Once again, the magic is a bit confusing unless you're using it, so any questions, please let me know and I'll answer them as best as I can. Also, when you choose this archetype at level 3, your Mage Hand cantrip is more specialized and powerful than the run-of-the-mill spellcasted. For starters, you can make the hand invisible. That's pretty huge in unto itself. But additionally, you can use the hand to pickpocket or plant an item on another creature, or use your thieves' tools to pick locks or disarm traps from a distance. Which, you know, for a trapped lock is very, very good because it means that you don't get an explosion to the face. You can also do any of these things unnoticed, but you have to make a sleight of hand check against the creature's perception check. At level 9, you are proficient at using your magic secretly from cover. If you are hidden from a creature when you cast a spell, the creature has disadvantage on any saving throw they must make as part of that spell, which is actually quite good. Disadvantage on a saving throw is very hard to get generally for spells. Literally, you can just hide as a bonus action, and then you can cast a spell on somebody, and then they have disadvantage. It's amazing. It makes a lot of spells effective that otherwise probably wouldn't have been. But moving on to my kind of opinions and suggestions for building a rogue in Baldur's Gate 3. For starters, as I said before, I'm a little worried about how the rogue will feel in Baldur's Gate 3. The base abilities are rather powerful early game, however the subclasses really come into their own at a bit higher level, like level 13-ish. As such, the level cap might feel a little lackluster compared to some of the other classes. This is purely speculation on my part, obviously, but I'm hoping that the rather in-depth stealth system that Larian's using is going to bolster the rogue somewhat and make them feel a bit more impactful. As for suggestions for building a rogue, dexterity is by far the most important ability score for any rogue. Secondary stats are far less important. Obviously intelligence if you're planning to go with Arcane Trickster, but other than that, it's far less relevant with a lot of other classes. As such, the optimal race choice for a rogue is pretty much any class that gives you dexterity as a bonus score. Some of those races, elves pretty much, most notably. Almost all the sub-races of elves give +2 in dexterity. Halflings also get a +2 in all their dexterity. Humans are always versatile enough that you can go with any class. And lastly, I'll point out gnomes, specifically forest gnomes. They make very good arcane tricksters as they get a +2 into intelligence and a +1 in dexterity, which just fits the archetype absolutely perfectly. As much as I have some reservations about how the rogue will translate into Baldur's Gate 3, I really don't see myself making a party without one. The natural affinity they possess in stealth and lockpicking alone is enough utility for me to just have one in my party at all times. I look forward to being wrong about the implementation that Larian's going to do. I'm really hoping they feel as powerful as I expect rogues to be, but we shall see. But that's it for the rogue. So if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.